Unfortunately, its true purpose is something much more entertainers and celebrities, by virtually every metric imaginable, this planet is in very good health. We are learning that one of the members of the squad, Ilhan Omar, engaged in reckless ballot harvesting in her district to get into office. It makes sense. She believes in socialism, which teaches that people cannot make their own decisions. She not only paid people to vote for her, but targeted the elderly, and her people went into the voting booth to ensure that they voted for the right people. This voting by rubber stamp is by no means legal, and I really hope the FBI and the Justice Department will be looking into this. President Trump is absolutely right to fear mail-in ballots because there are many other cases of fraud. New York City is sending new ballots to 100,000 voters after a printing error. Something tells me that they will not discount any earlier votes. Military ballots were found in the trash in Pennsylvania, and most were Trump votes. They probably figured since he gets more support from the troops to just dump all of them. Texas has announced 134 felony charges in response to mail-in ballot fraud during a Democratic primary. It makes sense that Texas would investigate this. This is without mentioning that the post office has endorsed Biden, the same federal agency that will be collecting the ballots. If you still trust them, try mailing cash across the country. It is illegal for someone to give gifts in exchange for votes, even if it is only $16 million in donations by Michael Bloomberg. Essentially what happened is that many Florida felons that could not vote because of their debts were bailed out by Bloomberg. A tiny house costs as low as $10,000. Doing some basic math, this means that Bloomberg could have provided housing for over 1,600 homeless people. Instead, he paid this debt on the hopes that they would vote Democrat. Here I thought that the Democrats claimed that they cared for the poor, but as always, they only care for their votes. The Florida Attorney General is asking for an FBI probe into this corruption. Democrats have realized that the only way that they can win is by underhanded means, and I believe that the deep state will be doing everything to help them. Roger Marshall, MD, has led the charge with 48 other members of Congress, asking Bill Barr to investigate whether or not Planned Parenthood violated the partial birth abortion ban. The Center for Medical Progress has shown that these people do not care about the laws, just selling off children for their organs. President Trump announced an executive order to ensure that all children born alive would get the care that they so desperately need. Naturally, this would be spun as a war on women, even if women supported it. Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, and many others have severe context missing, to the point that looking at it dissolves the entire narrative of BLM. Just about every time one of these martyrs is killed, we get some context, and more often than not, BLM throws everything out of proportion. Take Breonna Taylor, for example. She was supposedly a victim of racist police officers, but that is so untrue that it is slander. Taylor's ex was a drug dealer that had been arrested, and the police believed that he might have been using her home as a safe house. The raid came at 3 a.m, and the police both knocked on the door and identified themselves. Naturally, both Taylor and her new boyfriend are scared, Because anyone can claim to be the police, and both are fearful for their lives. When the door is broken down, he shoots an officer under castle doctrine, and the officer shoots back in retaliation. There is nothing racist about any of this. A severe misunderstanding and serving a warrant at 3 in the morning was the cause of this death, not racism. Russia is no bastion of freedom and not the best one to look to for anything. However, my mom says to give someone credit even if it is for the rising of the sun. Russia has made all properties that sexualize children illegal. This includes many shows and movies on Netflix, such as Cuties. Now, there is of course the argument of free speech, and as a libertarian, I should be the last person applauding any form of censorship. However, there is an important distinction to make here. Child pornography is already illegal in the United States, and anywhere in the civilized world for that matter. This is simply enforcing a law that is being ignored, because liberals want pedophilia to be considered a sexual orientation. Russia has taken down several other cartoons targeted to children and tweens, but I have not watched any of them, and so I cannot comment. Does anyone remember these two commercials from a few years ago?
Mom.
Yes, honey?
Dad told me that Cheerios is good for your heart. Is that true?
Says here that Cheerios has whole grain oats that can help remove some cholesterol, and that's heart healthy.
Jan?
Hey, Gracie. You know how our family has Daddy and Mommy?
And me.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty soon, you're gonna have a baby brother.
And a puppy.
Deal.
Some left-wing commentator said that Republicans would hate it, but everyone else would say, "Aww." Naturally, conservatives responded by posting pictures of their biracial families. Coney Barrett adopted 2 kids from Haiti and is attacked for it. What we have here is a case of Democrats showing their racism by looking for racism. Blatant sexism will be on full display during her nomination hearing. She also opposes abortion, unlike the phony Catholics that are Pelosi and Biden. She will be attacked, and we will once again see how tolerant the left can be. Richard Dawkins has gone out of his way to demonize Christianity and has created his reputation on attacking the Word of God. Granted, that is not a reputation that anyone should be proud of, but I digress. Either way, while mostly targeting Christianity, he has recently targeted Islam. Although being a religion of violence and death, liberals love it for some reason or another. Either way, by condemning this fanatical religion, Dawkins was cancelled. Brid O'Donnell cancelled him, not only for this, but also for standing by rapists, when the only argument the rape victim can give is that she was too drunk. Obviously not that upright of a man, but what can we expect when he turned away from the Most High? Edward Snowden is a hero. Because of his actions, we know more about the rampant spying by the United States government than we did prior. Of course, because of the data that he leaked, he is now considered a traitor, but I digress. Snowden signed a non-disclosure agreement with both the NSA and the CIA, and therefore had to let them review his manuscript before publishing his new book, permanent record. Because of the violation of this, he now owes the feds $5.2 million. Now, argue just laws and whether or not we have the responsibility to not follow unjust laws all you want. But as far as I understand it, unless he is extradited to the United States, all the feds can do is seize his property. Now, for the most important moment of the week, the first of the presidential debates. President Trump's tax records and whether or not he paid any taxes was apparently an important topic, but not whether or not Biden used his influence to get his son out of trouble. Joe Biden made this very strong claim.
I am the Democratic Party right now.
Now, where have I heard that before?
I am the Senate.
Social media was filled with people attacking Trump for not condemning white supremacists. Apparently, they did not watch the same debate that I did. This is at about the 65.5-minute mark.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
willing
to
do
specifically
that,
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what do you...
President Trump condemned white supremacy and then pointed out that the vast majority is from the Democrats. I talked about the ballots earlier, and so I will not rehash that. Finally, with the environmental plan, we had two very different candidates. President Trump argued for forest management and clearing underbrush that led to fires. Joe Biden argued for massive renovations of the entire economy and infrastructure on the argument that this would create jobs. The broken window fallacy was on full display. While I would like to say that Chris Wallace favored Joe Biden, and he did, I would also like to point out that for better or worse, President Trump repeatedly interrupted both of his opponents, just like Biden. That may make me unpopular amongst conservatives, but my goal here is to be unbiased, and I am calling it as I see it. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion.